The Triple Zip Crossbody Bag by Kine is a versatile bag that is perfect for keeping your essentials organized and within reach. It is also one of my most popular patterns. Hey sewing friends, I'm Stephanie and this is Ashtown Creations. The Triple Zip Crossbody Bag features 3 zippered compartments. This one has an internal zipper pocket and a slip pocket. This gives you ample space for all of your items, from your phone, your wallet, keys, makeup. Everything has its own place. Plus, the adjustable strap allows you to wear it crossbody and go hands-free while you're shopping. While the Triple Zip Crossbody Bag pattern was written for cork, faux leather, vinyl, leather, it can be made with a variety of different fabrics. Just make sure to give lighter fabrics some body with something like fusible fleece. The exterior of this bag is made with all cork. It is lined with an OtterTex waterproof canvas, and I have used a webbing for the strap. I've modified this pattern slightly. I've added an internal zipper pocket with an overlay, and I've added an accent strip to the slip pocket. I want to say thank you to Jessica from Kine for allowing me to record this tutorial for you. I will post a link to the pattern in the description box below, as well as in a pinned comment. So stay with me if you would like to see how this bag is made. All right, let's go through the pieces for the Triple Zip Crossbody Bag by Kine. I'm going to start here. So on the exterior, there's 3 zips, and they will be going in between pieces like this. So the top parts A and D, I have cut out of a yellow cork. Pieces B and E, which is the middle one of the front and the middle piece on the back, I have cut out of an orange cork. The middle piece on the back, I have cut a 1/4 inch larger than what it says in the pattern, and I will explain when we get to that point why I do that. And then for piece C and F, which are the exterior bottom pieces, I have cut it out of this beautiful bee and floral print cork. Moving on to pieces H, here are for the pockets. They're the lining for the pockets on the exterior. G is the slip pocket lining for the inside of the bag. I also cut out a strip of cork to go on the top, just to make it a little nicer inside on the top of that piece. And so piece I are the lining pieces. So this is all waterproof canvas, if I haven't mentioned that. And then I have also cut, pattern does not come with it, but I like adding a zipper pocket to it. So I've cut 2 pieces of waterproof canvas for the zipper pocket, and I also like putting a little overlay around the zipper on the zipper pocket. I've also cut a piece of zipper tape and have a slider for this interior zipper pocket. For the exterior zippers, I have 3 pieces of zipper tape. This beehive zipper tape, I can't seem to find where I got it from. I thought it was Zipper Valley, but I can't remember, and I can't seem to find it right now. I will do more looking after, and if I can find it, I'll put the link in the description box below. I know these pulls I got from Zipper Valley. So with those zippers, we have 3 sets of zipper ends. I have cut those out of the yellow cork. I have also cut these a different size than what it says in the pattern. I put it together a little differently. I used to, just put it a little bit on, like cover the end like that. But I've had them come apart. I've had zippers come off with that. So I now do them a little differently than what the pattern says. Also for this pattern, I've got my 1 inch 1 inch rectangle ring and 1 inch slide adjuster. I have my cork label. I have a cute little bag label that I got from Lauren Mormino at Sew Whatever. It says, "If you can read this, I'm proud of you for cleaning your bag." Just a cute little thing that I will put in with the overlay, zipper overlay. I'm using webbing. This is a cute little sunflower or floral webbing that I got from Zipper Valley. They don't have any more of this. I don't know if she will be getting any more. I really do like this printed. It's a seatbelt webbing type, seatbelt type webbing. So that's it for the pieces. The ones that I have cut differently. So this one I have cut it's 1 inch wide by the width of the pocket. This one I have cut, it was 2 inches by 8.5 inches. I've rounded the edges. I actually used an overlay from a different pattern to round the edges and then cut out the opening. These are 1.5 by 1 inch. And I think that's all of those pattern piece changes. So generally I am going to be putting this together following most of the pattern, but there are some additions and slight changes that I have made for this. Anyways, let's get sewing the triple zip crossbody bag. All right, we're going to prep our pieces now, and we're going to start with our 3 zippers, so the top and the 2 front exterior pieces. And we're also going to prepare the little webbing with rectangle ring. I'm going to set 2 of these aside for now, and I'm going to work on just the top zipper, so setting the other zippers aside. So we want to, first thing we have to do before we put the ends on is we need to put our zipper pull on. So I'm going to go look at my tape, and they're both the same. It doesn't really matter. So here, the coils go right, left, or left, right. Doesn't matter. They alternate. So I've got my first coil on the top, on the right, and then left, right, left, right. So I want to make sure, since I know this is straight, I want to make sure that I put my zipper pull on so that I end up with the right one on top and then left, right, left. So I'm going to break apart the zipper at this end, not very far. I'm going to slip my pull on. I usually put it on the side that's supposed to come first. I hold it with my thumb and middle finger, and then my index finger is on the butt end of the zipper. I slip the other side in, and then I move things around. So I pop this side up to try and make it somewhat even here and make the zipper look like it's going on somewhat straight. So I've got it sitting. I'm going to push till I feel a pop, and then I'm going to either put my finger in the center and pinch with my thumb and forefinger and try and move it down. There we go. Some are harder to get on than others, but as you can see, I've got it in the order I needed it in, and it looks straight on. The zipper head is pointing into the center of the teeth, and then you've got even bumps on either side. So I'm just going to slip that into the center, and I'm going to take one of my zipper tabs. So as I mentioned in the pieces video, or pieces section, so as I mentioned in the pieces section, I have cut these different than the pattern. I was doing it the way the pattern was written, but I found that either my stitches didn't stay and the zipper came off, or they were hard maybe on their bag. I don't know, but now I add these differently than the way they're added in the pattern. So this is one of the deviations from the pattern. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to put my tab right side together with the zipper and grab a couple clips, and I'm going to clip it in place. I'll do it on one side, this side, and explain it, and then the other side I will just go off and do it. So now I'm going to stitch it on with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I have a 3.5 stitch length. So, and I want to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Also going to use a piece of fabric I got with my machine to try and get me up on the top of the teeth. I'm going to back stitch and back stitch here. Trim my tails. Now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to flip it back on itself, and I'm going to flip it around one more time. So yes, there's a lot of extra fabric here after, but it gives me the room I need to make sure that I've got this. So I'm in effect double stitching this to make sure it does not come off. So I will now put it under and top stitch along this edge closest to the teeth with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and a 5 stitch length. I'm not sure you're going to see much of the zipper, so whether if you leave it on 3.5, I'm not sure that's going to make a huge difference. Now I'm going to take my scissors, and I am just going to cut off probably about between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch at the end there. I need to clean up my threads, and I'm going to melt them. So doing it this way just allows for extra security on the zipper. There's not much extra bulk. There is extra bulk compared to what the pattern has, but I do sell my bags, so I'd much rather have it secure and a little extra bulk than not secure and having to take apart the bag and redo the zipper, basically. Because it's very hard to put the bag back together nicely once it's complete. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead with the other side. I'm doing exactly the same thing, and then run through this quickly, and then we'll move on to one of the body zippers. All right, so I'm up to one of the body zippers. So I've got my zipper pull on, and I'm going to grab 2 of these zipper tabs, and I'm going to put them on the end just like I did the other and stitch them on. Stitch them across here. This part is exactly the same, and this part does follow what is in the pattern. So my first deviation was for the top zip. This part isn't. It's the same as what the pattern has. So I'm going to stitch this on with a 3.5 stitch length. And then for this one, instead of doing the fold back as well, we are just going to fold it once away from the zipper teeth. And now we're going to top stitch in there with a 5 stitch length. So not exactly the same as the top, but all of the pieces are the same size. So do the same for the other side and the other zipper, and then we'll move on to the next section. All right, the last thing we need to do after we've got all our zippers done for the prepping of the parts for this bag are adding the small piece of webbing to the rectangle ring. So I have this has a seam in it, so I prefer to hide that seam with the webbing. So I'm just going to stick the webbing in, fold it over the side with the seam, and then match up the ends. I'm just going to put a clip in it while I maneuver it over to the machine. Now we're going to just baste the ends together. And I've already got it on a 5mm stitch length because I was just top stitching. So I'll just leave it at that. If it was at 3.5, I'd probably just baste it at 3.5. These stitches are not coming out, so it doesn't really matter. All right, there we go. We can set this aside and start working on the next section. Okay, now we're moving on to working with the slip pocket. So I've got my slip pocket piece, I've got my cork overlay piece, and my body panel that I'm going to attach it to. So as I mentioned in the pieces, this is 1 inch by the width of this pattern piece. I have gone ahead and I've marked a line down the center, and now I'm just going to take some wash away wonder tape because that's what or the equivalent, that's what I can use and stitch through. I do have the really sticky tape, but my machine doesn't like going through it. Yes, there's silicone stuff that you can add to the needle. It's just a lot of extra work when I can just avoid using the really, really sticky tape in spots where I'm going to be stitching. So anyways, I've added it. I've added my wash away wonder tape to the length of either side. I'm going to peel the backing away from exposing one side. And if you want, like if your piece has a lot of fraying spots, trim them off. I should have, before I put the tape on, run my lighter along the edges. I forgot to do that. I'll try and remember to do it before the overlay piece. But anyways, so put this down, and then I'm going to place my pocket piece along this line with a little bit of space for turn of cloth when I'm flipping over this edge. But I really want it to be as even as possible. So when I go to sew it, I catch both sides in my stitch. You see, in my seam. All right, so I've done one. And there's no obvious way that this should go right side up, upside down, doesn't matter. So I'm going to flip this over and stick it down. I start in the center and work my way out. I am also, when I'm folding it over, I'm trying to feel if it will match up with the piece on the back. I'm going to grab some of my clips, and I'm going to just put a couple clips in it to hold it until I can get around to stitching it. And if anything, I would suggest, if you can't get it even, I would say have the front a little bit shorter than the back, because then we're going to stitch it from the top side. Then we will be, most likely, if it's shorter, you're going to catch the back piece, because we're stitching on the front, and if the front is shorter than the back. Anyway, so I've got clips in it. I'm going to turn around and sew this on. Before I go, I'm going to actually just set that there. I'm going to work on the other lining panel as well. So this is not in the pattern, so that's why I'm kind of winging it right here. I have my second panel for the lining. I have my two pocket pieces. They are 8" by 9". So 8 inches wide by 9 inches long. The cutout, I believe, is 7 inches. So what I'm going to do with this, there's two things. I need to get my other little... All right, so I'm also going to need my little zipper piece and my zipper pull. So I'm getting these things prepared so when I turn around to the machine, I can just do the sewing all at the same time. So I'm going to take my two pocket pieces here, and I'm going to, with the right side up along the 8" side, I am going to just clip my zipper tape along the short edge. So when we get to the machine, I am going to sew this on with a 1/4" seam allowance. So yes, we want the pattern piece right side up, and we're putting the zipper tape right side up. I leave the zipper pull off until I've gotten both sides stitched on, and then I will add it. So set that aside for a minute, and I'm going to grab my overlay piece. So for the overlay piece, I think I want it that way. So I'm going to just put some, again, working with the wash away wonder tape, I'm going to put some along the two long edges. This is just to help keep it in place. Okay, the other thing, two things I want to do. One, okay, figure out which side I want up. I think I want this up because the bees then are pointing up. I'm going to fold it in half and take my, I'm going to use my air erasing pen and just mark a spot, which is the center. I'm also going to take my lining piece that I'm going to be putting my zipper pocket on, and I'm going to find the center of this side. Actually, I think I just want to put a notch in it. So fold it in half and then clip a notch out of it. I'm still going to add that because I find it hard to see sometimes with all the lights where my line is. All right, so I'm just going to grab a little ruler and I'm going to line it up with the center of my pocket, or center of the lining piece. I am going to take my pocket overlay, and I'm doing it about 1.75 inches down from the edge. And then I'm just going to line up the center of my overlay with that center. So I put my 2-inch line here, and then I just meet up my mark, the center of this, with that 2-inch line. So I'm trying to get it evenly across. And then I'm going to push to stick that down. I'm going to remove the tape from the other side and kind of let it fall down on its own, and there we go. So when we go to the machine, I am going to stitch around this. I'm going to stitch this on and then add to the other side, and I'm going to do the stitching of the slip pocket panel. So let's move around to the machine and move on. All right, over at the machine, before I forget, in the pattern, if you're just following the pattern, pretend this is the top, you would just fold over the top X amount according to the instructions and then top stitch it. I've decided I wanted a little more, so I'm adding the cork overlay to tie in with the outside. So we're going to do a 5.5 stitch length, and I'm just doing about 1/8 of an inch away from the not the folded edge, the other edge. I may be a little bit more than 1/8. Actually, now that I think of it, I'm going to do a little bit more than 1/8 so that we make sure we catch the bottom as well. So I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam line, and we're just going to stitch this on. I've stitched this on now. So let's take our main panel, and I'll stick it under my presser foot for a minute. So this line that we've got drawn on there, according to the measurement given in the instructions, we're going to place the bottom of our panel along that line. So maybe I go sideways. So I am trying to line up. I flipped my panel so it's right side to right side. So this is the back of my pocket, and this is the right side of my panel. I'm going to line up the measurements, or line up the bottom of my pocket panel with the line that we drew. Just going to stick a couple clips in it. And then I'm going to stitch along this edge here, so along the bottom of the pocket panel, with a 3.5 stitch length, because we're stitching it onto the panel. This is how we stitch it onto the panel. So under my presser foot, move the clip so I don't show it, needle down, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning, back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Okay, we've got that stitched on. Now we want to take the pocket piece and fold it so that it's wrong side to right side. So basically flipping it up so that it forms the pocket of this piece. I'm just going to pull it out, and now we are going to baste along either side. And just press it with my fingers. We are going to baste along this side, top stitch along the bottom, and baste up the other side with a 5 stitch length. If you have fabric that you can iron, well, I can iron waterproof canvas, but I don't need to. I can finger press this well enough. Then you can go iron this into place. But since I've used waterproof canvas, I'm fine. All right, so back stitching beginning and the end of the seam. Just taking this out because, yeah, I think I've missed it. So the other thing you can do if you have some overhang and you think you're going to miss it, not that it's going to be a huge problem, but you can also just, I'm just going to top stitch this, and then you can finish the sides after. So So I've done that. Now if I want to, I can flip over my pattern piece. This also, you can do things this way if you have more curved pieces to make sure that you're getting everything. So I'm just going to baste up the side, following the narrowest, the one that's in further, not the outside edge, following the edge of my main panel piece because it's shorter. And then I will take my scissors and I will cut off the excess just so that I'm matching the actual pattern, the actual lining piece. When I go to match the lining pieces together, I have the right, I'm matching up the right edge. So the next thing we want to do, we want to put a line in the center. So I've already folded it, but I'm going to fold it again so that we can get the center of the pocket piece. So I am matching up the edges of the cork, edge of the bottom of the pocket, and then I'm going to smooth it out and just finger crease along the center because that will be where I'm going to put the pocket. Going to go to the bottom, start at the bottom and find my spot at the bottom of the pocket. I'm also going to change to a 3.5 stitch length. Some in the pattern, I'm not sure, don't believe it, you go up and back. Some patterns you go up and back. I'm just changing it to a smaller stitch length, and I'm going to go up and then just back stitch here right before I get to the cork because I am going to put a rivet in the cork. It's another reason I put cork on. It just gives it a little more stability. So back stitch at the beginning and the end. All right, so now I've got this sewn on. I'm going to take a silver marking pen and I am going to figure out approximately where above this line I am going to put a hole in and put in a rivet. So I've marked right there. I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to put a hole in it and then I'm going to put a rivet in. I have these little bits of Decaville Heavy that I keep on hand so that when I put it in, when I put rivets in, I can put it as a stabilizer on the back. So I will go off camera and do that. And then when we come back, we will be sewing up the interior zipper pocket. All right, we've got the rivet on. It's all set. So now we're going to move on to the zipper pocket. And as I mentioned before, this is an additional thing that I add. I like turning my bag through the base, the interior lining of the bag, and then I close the lining through a pocket. I feel it gives it a little more storage space in there too. So I decided I was going to add it. So what we need to do, and this is just the way I'm adding, there are numerous ways of adding a zipper pocket. I like the overlay. I think it gives it a nice little touch. So when I add an overlay, this is how I put in the pocket. So I guessed on what size I needed the pocket by how big the zipper opening was that I wanted. So I'm pretty sure I got 7 inches there. So then I added a 1/2 inch on either side. So I've got 8 inches. And then I just decided to make it 9. We are going to be cutting it down a bit, but that is how I came up with the piece size. Anyways, so now we're going to stitch this on, and I'm going to have to switch out my presser foot for my zipper foot. All right, zipper foot is on, and now we are going to stitch this tape onto the zipper pocket piece, one zipper pocket piece, 3.5 stitch length, and I'm using 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so we're grabbing the other side now, and we are going to put it along the other edge. So we'll put the zipper tape along the short edge of the second piece, and we want to make sure our sides are lining up. So I'm just going to put a clip in that side, and then I'm going to clip along this short edge. While the zipper tape is really cute, it is kind of bubbly, like it has waves in it. So I'm finding it's moving around a lot more than others. You could tape it down. You could use your double-sided tape to tape this in place so it doesn't move. Glue works. I'm finding clips are just fine. So I'm going to do the same, and I'm going to sew this along the top short edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, so if you haven't seen this technique before and think I'm doing it wrong by putting it right sides together, so zipper tape right side up, lining piece right side up. It's so that when we stick the zipper, and I'm going to go and iron this after, but say this is all flat and you've got your zipper slider in here. This is on what we see on the outside of the bag. So this is what we see on the inside of the lining. So we then have our right sides together on the lining side. Now I'm going to stitch this one on. And I notice I just forgot something. I wanted to put a little label on. So if you're going to put a label on, remember to actually add it. So I'm going to just lift up a corner and stick this. You can put it wherever you want. I just like it right under here. All right, so I'm just going to stitch around this all the way around the outside edge with a 5 stitch length, 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, there we go. I've got it all stitched on. And yes, I did backstitch. If you don't want to backstitch, leave your tails long. You can pull them through and knot them on the back. This print is busy enough, though, I don't think it really matters. So we'll work on this before going and ironing this part. So now that I've got this opening, like I need to get this open. So I've got it stitched on and I need to open this. So I'm going to just fold it in half, get my scissors, and then start cutting. I'm going to flip it to the back, and I'm going to get my scissors between the lining panel and the overlay, and I'm going to snip right within an 1/8 of an inch of this 1/8 of an inch of the stitches. I am going to expose my double-sided tape. The reason I put on Wash Away Wonder tape is because it comes out easier. So usually when I start this side, I'll go in and I will pull off my double-sided tape so it's not sticking to anything, it's not getting in the way. So it was just a means to an end. It was just a way to keep that in place while I stitch it on. So cutting around here, be careful if you have put on one of your woven labels that, you're not hacking it up. And then just cut all the way around. And you'll have to remove the tape on either side. If you're going to remove it from both sides, or you're going to get stuck on it. Really, you don't need to cut it this far away from the edge. I like doing it because that's just me. As long as you cut it far enough away that if the little edges start fraying on here, it's not going to pop out. And you can't see it from the other side, you should be fine. I forgot earlier again to try and get any of the little fluffies off the edge. I think we're good. All right, so now that I've got this all ready to go, I need to go to the iron and I'm going to iron this open. And then when I come back, I'll put the zipper pull on and we'll move on. All right, I'm back now and I have tried to press it. I ended up curling this a bit, but it'll work. So with my zippers, I like having them close on the left-hand side. So this is the right side up of the zipper. So this will end up what we see through the zipper box in our overlay. So I want my zipper to end over here, which means I need to put it on now from the opposite end. I'm just going to make sure that it's melted. Hopefully not too much. Split the zipper, pop it on one side, then the other, straighten it up, push it down. Oh, we got thread here. And zip. There we go. And it's on. It may have taken a bit to get on. Waterproof canvas has these little fluffies too, so might want to make sure you get your threads all out of the way because it can get caught in the zipper. So I got it on now. I'm going to put some, all right, now I'm going to take my 1/8 of an inch tape and I'm going to put it on the outside edge of the zipper tape because I want to, again, keep it out of my seam stitch line. All right, there we go. And now I want to take my lining panel and I want to center this zipper in the box left to right and top to bottom. So I'm going to go off camera, just turn around to my table and go off camera so I can do this properly and see what I'm doing. I'm going to take the tape off of the bottom side. So I've turned it around. My zipper's pointing that way. I want to make sure I put it in the box that way. I'll take the tape off of this bottom part. I'll get it set in there and then I'll come back and we can do the other side. All right, I've taken the tape off of the back and I've put this on. I do it off camera because quite honestly, I want this to look good. I'm not just doing this bag for a video. I intend to sell it. So I want it to look as nice as I possibly can get it. So now I'm going to flip this part back. I'm going to take the backing off of this piece of tape. And then I'm going to stick this down around. And I'm going to even it up if I need to. So now we need to stitch around this. What I'm going to do is start about 1/8 of an inch away from the corner down here on this, what is the right hand side. And at 5 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch straight across. I've got my tails long so that I can pull it to the back. Oops, I wasn't going to back stitch, but whatever, I'll clean that up later. We'll just stitch along here to this other side and come about 1/8 of an inch past. Okay, leaving my tails long. I'm going to pull them through the back. And honestly, it doesn't always catch here because when I fold my zipper back, my zipper panels back, I tend to pull them as tight as possible. I should probably leave a little more because it does go off. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to notice. You'll be the only one that, well, if somebody does notice, then they're looking a little closer than most people do. So, and I don't know that it would bother them. It's inside the pocket. I'm just trying to grab all of the stitches. And actually this one on the end, since I back stitch, I'm just going to trim it right off. This one I'm going to try and knot and clip it off. So now we need to put the zipper back. So now we need to take this and push the piece that was up. I'm going to flop it back down. I'm going to make sure that they're lined up on the sides. So now I'm going to stitch around. I'm going to put my needle down in the hole at the 1/8 of an inch that we went over. I'm going to put it there. I'm going to stitch up the side, across, and then down, ending in the hole on the other side. So basically I'm closing the box. And I'm still at the 5 stitch length, and I would pull your threads through. I'm going to try not to back stitch. So we'll pull the threads through when we're done. There we go. When I come back, I've got to switch out my, presser foot. And when I come back, we will finish off this pocket. All right, zipper foot or presser foot has been switched out. We're going to now stitch up the pocket. So, 2 things. We've got an overhang here. So I'm just going to, so I flipped it around to the back side. I'm going to put a couple clips just because I want to try and keep it as lined up as possible. And this extra bit here, I'm just going to cut off. It doesn't have to be perfect. which is good because this isn't. And now we're going to flip it back to the right side. I'm going to expose the zipper underneath. So I'm got the right side of the lining facing up. I've pulled the lining to the side, so I expose my zipper. Going to try and stitch as close as I can to the lining panel without going over, and I have a 3.5 stitch length. I'm going to back stitch in the beginning and the end of the seam. So once I'm down past the overlay, I'm just going to continue with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm also, when I get down further, I'm going to take the bottom of the pocket and I'm going to fold it up by a bit. This is going to help us, after we're done the bag, close up the bottom of the pocket. Okay, flipping it over to the other side. We're going to start from the bottom this time, and we want to match that fold all the way along. So I'm going to start at the bottom with it already folded up, and I'm at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And again, moving the lining away from the zipper pocket. All right, the only other thing I want to do now is trim up my zipper tape. So I'm going to, you don't have to do this, I want to do it. I'm just going to trim it down to closer to the zipper pocket piece, and I'm going to melt threads and the edge. Do it the same for the other side. All right, the last thing we need to do with this pocket is turn this bottom edge. So I just open it up, go to one side, and then pull it so that it folds itself over. And do that on the other side. You don't have to do it this way. This is just the way I do it. And then I put some of my flat clips in just for a bit. You can iron it. That would help. If you feel like you're getting too much bulk in the side here, you can snip in to but not through your stitches, and that'll flatten that part out a bit. Do it with my scissors. There. So that just will allow that to be a little more flat. All right, so that is our zipper pocket. All right, for this next section, we are working on the front. So I have my 2 zipper pocket panels. I have my front base, middle, and top piece. And I have my 3 zippers that we prepared early on in the beginning of the tutorial. So the first pocket, I am going to follow how it's written in the pattern. I do find this a little confusing. I do understand it now, but when I first started, I found it very confusing. So I have also figured out a way to make it make sense to me. So the first zipper that we're going to put in is the one here. And I'm going to put it in the way it's written in the pattern. The second one I'll put in, this one, will be the way I do it. We want to make sure, well, at least I want to make sure that I have the zippers all on the same side. So I want to make sure the zipper pulls all end on the left side. So if you want them landing on the left side, we take, according to the pattern, we take the pocket, one of the pocket lining pieces, it's face up, and we have it the long sides on our left and right. I'm going to take one of the zippers for this piece. Actually, I'm going to mark the center. So when I mark the center, I match up the sides, like where I've stitched on the zipper tab, and then pinch it across to find the center. And I'm going to mark it with the air erasing pen. I do not like to snip into my zippers. You can if you want. That's up to you. I used to use a tool that would heat up. I can't remember what it's called now. Thread zapper. I used to use the thread zapper, and you can melt the edges. I've taken snips out, and I have used, like I've taken little snip into it, and then you take your lighter and heat it, and that will do it. But this works just as well. So I've marked the center of my zipper. I'm going to find the center of my pattern piece. The reason I'm finding the center on these is because when I switched, because these zippers are longer than the pattern or the piece is wide. So I want to make sure I find the center of it. I'm going to find center on both just to be on the safe side. Okay, pattern suggests put it with your long sides to your left and the right, and then we're going to put your zipper face up with the zipper pull pointing towards you. And then grab the centers, and I'm going to put clips in it. All right, so I've got clips in it. This is the way. Now I am going to baste. It doesn't suggest to baste, but I'm going to baste it on. So I'll just turn around, baste it, and then we'll come back. All right, there we have that piece basted on. Now we want to take our bottom piece, which I believe is C. I'm going to actually mark the centers of it as well. Okay, I'm going to take my piece C and I'm going to flip it so that I'm putting wrong sides together with the zipper tape and the lining fabric. I'm going to match up my centers and I'm going to put clips in it. If you're comfortable and not basting, then you can just put these three together and stitch at once. I prefer to do the basting because that gives me a nicer finish in the end. So now I'm going to turn this around and I am just going to stitch along here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's about as tight as I can get. Yeah, so that's about as tight as I can get. All right, I switched out to my zipper foot so we can get as close to the zipper coils as possible. I'm leaving it with the my cork piece on the top, so the exterior bottom piece on top. With this, it doesn't really matter, but if you do your lining in a quilting cotton, I would put that on the bottom and have your more stable fabric on top. So I'm going to stitch this on. So I've got it at a 3.5 stitch length. I'm going to stitch this on about 1/4 inch. That's about as close as I can get. All right, now that we have that, I'm going to just turn it around so that I have the seam allowance on my left. And I'm going to take the bottom piece, which is still on top, and I'm going to fold it over the seam allowance to the left. I'm going to do up my zipper so that it's a little more structured while I'm folding this over. So now I'm going to top stitch, so 5 stitch length, and I'm going to top stitch along here. I don't want to include the lining, pocket lining in this stitch. I only want to stitch on the outside, the exterior piece. If you want to, you can do both, but I find it much nicer look inside the bag, and you don't have to worry about catching the lining part if you just do it this way. So I'm going to try this with my narrow foot on, so I don't have to keep flipping my changing presser feet. Because unfortunately, with this machine anyways, there's no quick release to pop it on and off. I have to undo my screw every time I do it. So anyways, top stitching this piece. All right, so now we've got that on. I'm just going to hold on to the beeple, and I'm going to smooth out and finger press the lining. You can iron it if you need to. I'm just going to finger press it for now. All right, now that we're done finger pressing, I am going to take my piece and I am going to bring the bottom. So this is the zipper pocket piece. I'm going to fold it in the center and bring the bottom up to meet the zipper at the top here. And I'm going to put a clip in it. You want to make sure that the zipper pocket lines up along the sides as well as the top. So you want your sides to be even, otherwise you'll have a wonky zipper pocket. So I'm just going to clip this in place. Okay, and now I'm going to press that down. I'm going to baste this piece on the side here with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, size 5 stitch length. I'm turning it because my walking foot has, this one, the small one only has a toe on one side and then the middle foot. I am going to turn this around so that I can actually use the walking foot to help move this fabric along. So just going to put it down there, and then I'm basting. It's just going to look a little different because I'm coming up from the other side. I just don't want to be replacing my zipper, like changing out my zipper feet that many times, because I'm going to need it again. So here we go. There we go. I find it a little more difficult to sew it that way, but it's what I need to do with the zipper foot this way. I would probably sew this on a little different if I wasn't on camera. Anyways, we have it this far. So the next piece I want to grab is my middle piece here. So this is the smaller of the two. So it's not quite as tall as the back one. I'm going to find the centers of this piece as well. And I'm going to close my zipper, and I'm going to align the middle cork piece with my zipper. And I am going to clip it on. I think I'll move my zipper pull out of the way. So, and I'm going to stitch this on with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, the reason I can do this with it in this direction is because the 1/4 inch, this toe, this side of the foot will actually still be on the fabric. When I was doing it the other way, it wasn't going to be on the fabric. So when I was doing it, 1/8 of an inch is running right in between those two, the center of the foot and the toe. It's running it in between them. So it wouldn't have been grabbing onto anything. Since it's grabbing onto things, I'm going to switch to a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch across this, back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. All right, now I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to, so I've got the pocket, so the seam allowance is pointing to my left. I'm going to take the middle panel that I just applied and I'm going to push it to the left. So it's going to be over top of the seam allowance. And now I'm going to top stitch it on with a 5 stitch length and 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so this is what we have right now. I need to put on my cork label because I usually put it on in here. It's just where I like having it. So I'll do that off camera, and then we will add the next zipper pocket and stuff. It's pretty much a repeat of this, only I'm going to show you how I do it slightly differently than the pattern. But I'll get mine sewn on and then we'll move on. All right, I've got my label on, and now it's time to move on to the next zipper pocket. So as I mentioned before, I do things a little different than the pattern. So I've shown you now how the pattern did it. If you want to continue working on it the way the pattern does, you would put your piece this way, line up the centers with your zipper face up, add this piece, top stitch and whatnot. But I would rather have it, I want to make sure that I get the zippers going the same way. So having it sitting up like this with the right side of the exterior facing up, I can see that they're going to close on the right side. So I'm going to just mark my centers first before I attach it. All right, I've got my zipper marked, centers marked on my zipper. I am going to put it back down this way. So this is where I want it, the way I want it to sit. So I've got right side up of the zipper, right side up of my exterior. I'm going to take my zipper and flip it right sides together with the exterior, and I'm going to clip. I'm actually going to open the zip first. The reason I open the zip first is so that I get the majority of it sewn on before I have to move, majority of the zipper sewn on before I have to move the slider. So go out the other side. All right, so I'm just going to turn around, take it to the machine, and baste the zipper on this way. All right, the zipper has been basted on. I'm going to open I'm going to open the slider again, and I'm going to take the other lining piece. So, and I'm going to put the lining piece right side down. So all of this, so our exterior right now is face up, the zipper face down, lining face down, and I'm going to match the centers. So I'm going to center it across this and clip it. There, just clipped it into place. Now I'm going to go stitch it on with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, like I said, I'm going to stitch this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I am going to stitch it. Actually, I think I'm going to stitch it from this side, and I'm going to keep this, the cork part, so the exterior part I've already sewn on. I'm going to keep it to the right because that's where my foot will allow me. So I want to make sure that I stitch with a 3.5 stitch length inside, so closer to the zipper teeth than the 1/8 of an inch I had before. So I'm just going to backstitch beginning and the end of the seam to sew this on. All right, we've sewn this on. Now I want to, so everything, got it on my machine. I've got the stuff, the pocket we've already sewn is on the top. The lining pocket that hasn't been completed is on the bottom. The seam allowance is going to my left. I am going to flip just the exterior pieces to the left over top of the seam allowance. So now I'm going to, we want to top stitch this 5 stitch length all the way down, and I'm going to backstitch beginning and the end of the seam, moving my zipper pull out of the way as needed. So again, we top stitch this without the lining panel underneath. If you want, again, you can certainly tuck the lining panel underneath, but I have never had any problems with the zippers with it done like this, and it is a much nicer finish on the inside. There's no stitch lines here. So now we're going to take this piece, we're going to press the waterproof canvas down away from the zipper, and then grab the other end of the zipper pocket and bring it up to match the centers on the zipper. Just like we did the other side. This part is the same. It's just how I place it on, what piece I use first. I've always found it confusing using, like, adding a zipper to the lining first. So that's why I add it to the exterior piece first. I'm also then guaranteed, well, mostly guaranteed, if I take the time to figure out where I want it and then put it face down, I am pretty much guaranteed that I will get it in the right place. So now I'm just going to go along, now that I've pulled that up. And the other thing that's not in, I don't know if I already said this, the other thing that's not in the pattern are all of the basting steps that I do. That's just me. I like to have things basted in place. So I'm going to baste this zipper now onto the bottom side of the zipper pocket and backstitch and beginning and the end of the seam. All right, now that we have that all done, our pockets are in. I'm going to press them, finger press them a bit. Go back to the right side of the bag. I'm going to grab the top piece now. This is piece A. And I'm going to, I found the centers already, and I'm going to put it right sides together, face down, right sides together with the zipper and the lining fabric. And I'm going to also, when I'm adding these, I want these sides here with the previous pieces to match. Not so much the tabs, because as you can see, my tabs extend. But we want to make sure that these edges are lined up as close as possible. So I'm going to clip it there. I'm going to actually zip up my zipper again. All right, it's all on, and now I am going to sew along this edge with the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So a 3.5 stitch length. Just going to double check my thread again. All right, bobbin thread has been changed. I am going to stitch this on with a 3.5 stitch length, 1/4 inch, as close to 1/4 inch seam allowance as I can. All right, like we've done before with the exterior pieces facing up, the bulk of the bag facing up, seam allowance to the left, we are just going to fold back this top section, and now we're going to top stitch with a 5 stitch length. All right, so we've got the exterior all sewn together here. And I can tell that I used a different seam allowance between this one. So I used my zipper foot on this one. I didn't on this one, and I can tell I've got a larger space in here than here. So if you're going to do this, be consistent with what foot you use. I just don't really like switching back and forth because it takes more time and energy to switch out the foot. It's not an easy swap. So I'm going to set this aside for now, and then we'll move on to the back piece. All right, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I probably couldn't let it go. So I ended up taking out the top stitch lines, rows of top stitching. I put my narrow foot back on, sewed a little closer to the zipper. It's still not perfect, but it's close enough. And then I re-top stitched it. So I'm going to set this aside, just not too far away, because we're going to use it to try and figure out the back. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my bottom exterior back piece and the middle piece, and I'm going to lie it right sides together. I'm going to throw a few clips in it just to keep it in place. Okay, so now I'm going to, with a 3.5 stitch length, I'm going to stitch it with the recommended seam allowance. Back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. So now I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to put it so that the exterior bottom is on the top, my seam allowance is to my left, and then I'm going to fold the exterior bottom over the seam allowance. Switch it to a 5 stitch length, and then I'm going to top stitch. All right, so this is top stitch. Now, if you remember when I started with the pieces, I said I cut this one a little bit wider this way than the pattern says, and that's because of what we're going to do in the next step. So when we sew it together, we're going to want to match up the bottom, and we're going to want to match up the top. And then this will be just the in-between will be, this orange part in between will go from this edge to that edge. So we wanted to match up as best as we possibly can. So what I usually do is I will take my piece that I just stitched the middle part on, and then I'm going to match up the side seams. So I'm matching up the edges of the bottom of the exterior pieces, and I'm putting a clip in it. And I'll do the same for both sides. Move the zipper pulls to the center. Get them out of the way. All right. So in the past, I have stitched this and then found out that the back part was shorter because I had left too much. So when I stitch, like I showed you, stitching this on, I had a different seam allowance than the original one. The original one is closer to what the pattern says, so the pattern piece may be fine, it may fit, but so I don't have to switch out feet as I'm doing this. My seam allowances in and around the zipper tend to be a little larger, so that's why I cut this piece a little larger, so that I can then fit the last piece on so that they match up properly. So anyways, I matched up the sides, and I'm just going to clip the sides and then fold this back. And now I want, after my seam allowance, I want this part to match up here. So I try and figure out how much needs to come off so that when I do my seam allowance, I'm getting it to finish at the right height. So I'm looking at it this way. I have the seam allowance on this one. It's the same as this. So how far up do I need to stitch for this piece to finish at the same spot? And I'm going to say right in around there. So I'm going to mark that on both sides. So if you take a larger seam allowance in your with your zippers, then you may want to try this. If you don't, then you may just want to skip this part and sew this piece together normally. This is only, the only reason I'm doing this is because my seam allowances around my zippers are not usually correct. So I am going to go and I'm going to go to my cutting table briefly. I'm going to mark this line and I am going to mark the seam allowance up from here. When I come back, I will stitch this on. All right, so I took the 1/4 inch that I added on, I took that off. So I'm assuming I've got close enough here that I can just use the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now I'm going to set that aside briefly. I'm going to take this and I am going to stitch this right sides. So put it right sides together, the top with the middle, and I'm going to clip along the edge. I'm going to sew this on with the recommended seam allowance. All right, sewing it on with the 3.5 stitch length at the recommended seam allowance. All right, so I want the seam allowance on this to be behind the top piece. So it actually looks like this center panel is recessed. We're top stitched on the bottom piece and the top piece. So 5 millimeter stitch length and 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so there we go. We've got this. I'm just going to find the center of the top and the bottom. So I'm matching up the joins here. And I'm just find the center like we usually do. And then I'm going to find the center of the base too. All right. So now we're going to move on to the next section. All right, we're getting now to the point where we're going to join our exterior and our lining. So I've got my main front exterior. I've got my zipper with the wrapped over ends, zip tabs on them, and I have my lining. And I picked the slip pocket. I usually like the slip pocket on the front and the zipper pocket on the back. You can pick whatever you want. I want my zipper to end like these ones. Finish over here, that's closed. So I want this one to end on this side as well. I'm just going to move it back to the center for now. So I'm going to take my zipper. So I've laid it out like this. So I know this is going to now close on the left-hand side. I'm going to take my zipper and fold it, place it right sides together with the exterior panel, and I'm going to clip. All right, so now I'm going to stitch this on with baste this on with 5 stitch length and 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just over the zipper part. All right, got that basted on. So now I'm going to take my lining panel, which I have found the centers for the top and the bottom. I'm going to place it right sides together with the exterior, and I'm going to move my zipper out of the way. Actually, I think I'm going to be stitching it because I'm not switching out. It's not as important for the top one to be, top zipper to be stitched with my narrow foot. So I'm going to just sew it from the other direction. So I'm going to clip out both directions, making sure I've got them centered and these ends even. I'm going to for me, I'm going to sew it this way. This is how I get the best, as close as I can without switching my zipper foot, is put it through the throat of my machine. So move this slightly, and I'm putting it on a 3.5 stitch length. All right, and just like we did for the other panels, we're going to put it so that the seam allowance is to the left with the exterior on top, and then I'm going to flip it so that the exterior is over top of the seam allowance, like that. And then now I'm going to change it 5 stitch length, and I'm going to top stitch along the edge here on the exterior. There we go. So I'm going to take this, flip it over, and finger press the lining in. So now we need to add the exterior, or add the other side. But before we do that, we've got to put in our crossbody strap and our little strap tab. So I'm going to take you over to the table and we'll do that. There's our completed front. And before we add on the back, we need to add in our strap and our rectangle ring. So I'm going to just, they need to go on the zipper before we attach the other exterior and lining. So on the side that closes, so on my left side, I am going to, just inside of where the zipper tab is, I am going to place the rectangle ring piece. So the small little piece we prepared at the beginning, I'm going to stick it on, matching the butt end of the webbing with the zipper tape. So I'm going to clip it into place. And for now, I'm just going to put 2 on it. We'll remove it after. So that's one side. So on the other side, we're going to take the other part of the strap. So if you have a right side and a wrong side, you want it wrong side up, because this will come up and around this way. So you want it wrong side down. And we're going to, again, place it right inside the tab, matching up the end of the webbing with the edge of the zipper. And again, clip in place. I'm going to just go around to the machine and I'm going to baste these on, and then we'll put the rest of the pieces on. All right, there we've got these basted on, and I went back and forth a couple times just to make sure they stay. Now, I'm hoping the zipper tape, I haven't used this zipper tape in this type of bag yet, so I'm really hoping this is good zipper tape. There are some zipper tapes out there that have woven in stripes. I would not want to, this is the weight of the bag, is going to be pulling on the zipper and the exterior pieces, but I'm not sure if it's not a good zipper tape, I'm not sure I would use it for this process. Because this is where the weight is. Anyway, so when we're done this, we'll put it on, and when we're done this will be at the back of the bag. So it may look funny now, it may look like we're going to get in the way of our zipper, but trust me, this is the way it works. So now I'm going to take my exterior back piece, and I'm going to put it face down on here, matching up, I'm not sure which direction to put my zipper, matching up the center, and clip it. I'm turning my clips because I usually baste zippers on from the zipper side. So we are going to baste this on. All right, I'm going to quickly turn around and baste these together. Then we'll put the other panel on. All right, there we've got this basted on. I did go over on one of them. Yeah, on this side, I went over this webbing a little bit, hoping the webbing doesn't rip. Okay. So now I'm going to take the last piece, which is my lining zipper with the zipper pocket, and I'm going to put them basically right side together with the exterior. So I've got the exterior that I just added with the zipper. I've got the exterior right side up, the zipper right side down, and I'm going to put the lining right side down. All right, so I'm going to go over to the machine. We're going to go over to the machine and I'm going to stitch this on just like I did. I'm going to have to make sure I get all of this stuff out of the way so it doesn't get caught on anything. And I'm going to stitch this part of the zipper on. All right, there we got quite a bit of bag. Like I said, I'm going to roll this stuff up and try and keep things out of the way while I stitch this on. Stitch these pieces together, 3.5 millimeters stitch length, and as close to the 1/4 inch seam allowance as I can. Back stitching beginning and the end of the seam. And as with the other pieces, we want everything. The last piece we sewed, we want on top. The piece we're going to top stitch is this one. Seam allowance going to the left. I'm going to spread it so that I've got my top going one way, the lining going the other, just like the rest of them. And I'm going to top stitch this with a 5 stitch length, and I'm going to have my, let's see if you can see this. So these parts will go towards the rest of the zipper pockets. So all of the webbing and stuff will be pointing away from where we're top stitching. So we're not top stitching them down. We're not top stitching them down like that. We're top stitching it up like that. Okay. Make sure everything's going the right direction. Thread slipped out of my fingers, so then it jammed, so I got to take this out and start again. All right, now that we've got that on, we need to put the exterior and lining together and sew those. So I'm going to turn this around and we'll get doing that. All right, before we put the lining and the exteriors together, one thing we need to do is sew these darts on the corner. So I'm going to fold them over. So I'm taking one of the darts and I'm going to fold it right sides together, lining up the edges of both the cut edge of the dart as well as the base. And I usually clip in 2 spots. So I'll clip it there and then I'll clip it along here. And you're going to need to do these 8 times. So there's 4 on the exterior, 4 on the lining. So I'll do the exterior first. So I'm just going to take it. You have to kind of twist it around to get it in the right position. Fold things up as needed. And now we're just going to stitch here. I'm going to start back further because we have a seam allowance. So with that seam allowance, I need to start further back so that I can catch this part in the seam as well. So we're going to use a 3.5 stitch length. And I'm starting down a little bit, but I will back up to the edge. So there, I backed up to the edge, and now I'm going to come forward. And if you want, you can, I usually try and chain stitch these. But so we want to do that, and we want to do it for all of them. So so that's one of the exteriors. I'm just going to go to the lining, this lining side, because I find it looks like it's got stuff in the way, but it's not too bad. You're still going to fold it right sides together as well. You're just maybe folding the pocket. So if you look at this side, you can see where the stitches were for the pocket. We should be okay. We should not be putting, the dart should not be sewn into the pocket. If you've followed the instructions and sewn the pocket on where it was meant to be. You shouldn't be including them in the darts. All right, so now I'm just going to do this side. All right, so those are basically what you do. It's the same for the exterior as the lining. Just with the pocket, you should not see there is a good half to 3/4 of an inch away from the pocket. So you should not be your pocket should not be in the way. And this is what we will end up with. So I'm going to do the rest of them off camera. And I've usually just chain stitched as many as possible. I clip them because this table, things want to fall off, like get pulled off this table. So do what you can, and when you're done, we'll then join the exterior and lining pieces together. All right, we've got all of the darts sewn up. So what we're going to do now is join the exteriors together and the linings together. So I'm just going to, got linings there, I've got exteriors here. I'm going to start with the exterior, and I am going to fold it together. I'm going to match up the seams, all of the seams that I can. So I'm starting by matching up this top seam. I have pushed my zipper towards the lining. So when I bend my zipper out of the way, I'm pushing it towards the lining. So I'm going to put a clip in right here, match the next join. So like where I've joined the two pieces, I'm going to match that up and put a clip in it. I'm going to scoot down here to match this one, and I'm going to, so I got it matched, clip. I'm also clipping the pocket in here because the pockets, we want the pockets to stay down. So moving around to the other side, this is where the strap starts getting in the way. So I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to push the zipper towards the lining, pinch it, and clip. So now when I get to the bottom here, I'm going to try and match up my centers because I've marked my center notches. So I'm going to try and match up my center notches. I'm going to come over to where I've put the darts in, and I'm going to push one side of the dart to the left and one side to the right. This is how we nest a seam. So you could separate them and butterfly them, but I find this works just as well. So I'm going to put a clip in there and then start clipping the other spots that need to be done. And right now I'm focused on the exterior. So this one I put the back side to the right or to the left. So I'll put this one. So I'm pointing one side in, this side I'm pointing out. And I will be keeping track of that. So when I do the lining, I do the opposite direction. So, all right. So for now, that's a couple more clips for the exterior. Now I'm going to the lining, and the only thing we have on the lining to kind of match up are these corners. So on this side, I have them going out. So on this lining side, that will be wrong sides together with it. I'm going to push the seams in, which means the lining that I've got here with the zipper, so the opposite lining, will go out. Again, nesting the seams. So I'm nesting it with each other, but I'm also nesting it so when it's inside the bag, there isn't as much bulk all in one spot. Matched up the base. So this one's going out and that one's going in. So with the bottom of this bag, I am going to leave an opening because I want to earth my bag through this opening, and then I will close it with through the zipper pocket. So coming down, it's all like it's mostly curved. So I'm just going to get past the dart and I'm going to put a mark. And this is where I'm going to go off. So I'm going to do like a little corner here. Finish my stitches, and I'll do the same here. So I'm marking this in, and I will put corners here, reinforce it so that it won't rip when I turn the bag. And then the rest of it, I'm just going to be clipping along the edge. Things don't always match up perfectly. This is inside the bag, so that it's not as big of a deal. I'm going to put some clips in here just to hold it together while I'm sewing, but I'm not sewing between these marks. So this part here will not be sewn. I will be coming off here and then start again on this side, most likely. One or the, like I might, yeah, no, I'll probably start there and come around. So. Okay, so usually with these, you know, when you've got this whole thing going on, you end up starting at one side and then go all the way around. I want to make sure that my exteriors line up. So I will be starting on one side, so probably this side. I'll probably start here and then sew around. Yeah, I'm going to put my needle down on this side so that I get at least this side lined up, and then go around and then stop there, start here, coming back up to here. At least then most of this side will be matching, will be lined up. We're going to sew around with, so on the exterior we're using the seam allowance given. On the interior I'm going to take it in just a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch on either side. So I do tend to make my, unless the pattern has been drafted for a smaller lining, which I don't believe this one has, I do take a little bit off so that it will sit a little nicer inside. So anyways, moving the camera around. As I've mentioned, I'm going to start in this spot. So this is where the top zipper is. I want at least one side to look nice, and then I'll continue around, stop at that end, start there and here. This is all with a 3.5 stitch length. And as I mentioned, my seam allowances are going to vary between the exterior and the lining. Back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. And using a hump jumper as you need to get up over the humps. If you don't use a hump jumper, you can misalign your seams then. So this way we're on top, one step at a time, or two. We're more likely to keep them lined up if we approach them this way than instead of just plowing through them. Right now that I've gone around the exterior, I'm going to, and I've crossed this where the zipper is, I'm going to start increasing a little bit my seam allowance coming around this way. Make sure your pocket is up out of the way. All right, sometimes you can use a jump stitch, but so I have come off. I've come off a little bit before, but that shouldn't matter. I came off at that. I backstitched here and I backstitched here. Should be fine. I'm going to turn the bag so that I'm coming in at this L, and then we'll come all the way up to the end here and join up the stitches. So yeah. And as I get closer to my ending spot, I will gradually go back to the original seam allowance. All right, there we go. I'm going to change the camera angle and we'll move on. All right, we've got everything stitched together. I still have my opening down here. I'm going to take my pinking shears, between my pinking shears and my regular scissors, and I am going to trim out. I'm not going to trim my stitches, any of them, but not my corner stitches here. I'm going to start in from that, and I'm going to clip the curves. So it's important that you either clip with pinking shears or notch them with scissors. I'm going to trim down this seam allowance here. Don't cut your pocket. Pretty hefty layers under here. And then when I get down to closer to the bottom corner, I'm going to switch back to my pinking shears. All right, we got it all trimmed up. Now I'm going to, I should have mentioned before, I left my zipper open halfway. So now I'm just pushing it back out of the way. And I'm sticking my hand, so I've stuck my hand in the bottom of this bag. I'll go all the way up to the top. I'm going to open my hand wide, push the bottom of the bag into my hand, grab it, and then start pulling it through. So don't forget to open your zipper. Zippers can be opened. If you've left them closed, it's not the end of the world. You can open them unless you have a locking zipper. But I don't know any size 5 zippers that are locking, but that doesn't mean there aren't any. But yeah, so just remember to leave your zipper open and then you won't have to worry about it. So I've got my hand all the way back in the bag, and I'm going to pop out my bottom corners. Pop out the other corner. The sides, have a look. My seams are matched pretty well on this side. Hopefully they are on the other side too. I'm going to stick my thumb in and push up this. So this tab should not be caught in your seam allowance at all. It should be free. You should be able to stick a pen in and it come out there. So that is correct. You don't want that part caught in your seam. I should have mentioned that when you're going around. Feel for your tab and don't sew it in. So I'm just working these edges. Now time for this side. That's not bad. Got some threads to clean up. And then push out this side. And again, you can stick your finger in here and pop that up. Again, it should not be sewn in. And you want to pop out your corners nicely. Okay. There we go. So now I'm going to work on the lining side, and I'm just going to pop out these darts. I'm going to put all of the lining back in. So with Ottertex, this is Ottertex waterproof canvas. It can be a little stiff. If you want, you can use an iron and steam and heat, steam it so that it softens it up a bit. So far I'm okay. So I'm just pushing it. I'm pushing it in as I'm holding onto the zipper. So like holding onto the zipper and then pushing the lining into the bottom. So I am moving the lining away from the zipper tape. So I'm going to open my zipper from my zipper pocket. I'm going to pull out my pocket. I'm going to reach back in, and I am going to grab the 2 bottom pieces that we left where we turned, the opening where we turned. And I'm going to try and pull them out here. This is one of the spots that it gets a little tight. Trying to get them out, but it's doable. See, it's all doable. And this way, I'm going to put a few clips in it. And this way we get a nice finish on the bottom. This bag doesn't stand on its own generally. So you don't have to worry about somebody coming, just wanting to put it down. Because it's, rounded, they're probably not going to try and sit it down and have things sit nicely on top of it. So it doesn't matter as much with this bag. I just really don't like the, when it's closed from the lining, like when the lining is closed and it creates that lip when you machine stitch it. I'm also not going to sit and hand stitch waterproof canvas. So I'm going to move this around. I'm just actually going to go off camera. I'm going to stitch this close. So I'm going to put my needle down, maybe a few stitches back from this corner, and then come around at the seam allowance. Now it's the seam allowance. I'm going to probably use the seam allowance that I did for the rest of the lining. So I'm going to do that here, close it up, tuck it back in, and then I'll show you what I do with the pocket. All right, so I got this stitched. I'm just going to take my scissors. So I back stitched. I went past where we had the turning hole, and I back stitched in the beginning and the end, so it doesn't matter if we trim those stitches now. And I'm just going to trim the seam allowance down. I'm going to push this all back in the bag. All right, so now I've got this pocket. Because I stitched it the way I did, it's already pointing, these corners are already pointing to the inside. So I'm just going to stick my fingers in either side and pull it out. I'm going to try and fold it over and pinch. So not all of it wants to stay folded over. I didn't press it. If you've pressed it, it will go a lot easier than this. So again, fold it over and pinch. Here we go. So I've got that. I'm going to just stitch this closed. You could use a basting, like the 5 seam allowance or 5 stitch length if you want. I'm going to use my 3.5 to close this. It doesn't really matter as long as you close it with a decent seam or stitch length so that it doesn't open inside the bag. So I'll turn around and do that, and then we will, I think the next step is the strap. Going to work on the strap. So this is what I have. So the bag has the strap going here. We need to put the slider on, hook it through here, and then attach it to the slider. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this all in. We want to make sure we put it on without twisting it. So the top, I'm just going to grab this, and the top is the outside. What you see on the front of the bag is what I'm calling the top. So I grab that and I'm slowly working my way down. And I'm going to take my slide adjuster. I'm going to go up one side and down the other side of the bar, center bar. And I'm going to slide it on in place like that. So with the top again, so this is the top of the strap. I'm going to come in from the front of my rectangle ring. So my top here is going to go right sides together basically with the bag. It's going to come in here and then out the back. Turn this on its side. So there, we've got this. So this is basically, so the top is on my right hand side. So now I'm going to push the webbing up on the slider. I'm going to push it away from the center bar. I'm going to take my webbing and I'm going to make sure I've got the right side of the webbing on my right hand side. I'm going to go up the right side of the center bar of the slider and then down the left, pull it a bit through, and then I'm going to take the end of my webbing. I'm going to fold it over approximately an inch, and then I'm going to grab the piece that just came up and through that. So we've got one piece way out here that can move, and the piece that just went over the center bar is the piece we want to grab. So we want it like that, and I'm going to put a clip in it. So putting it down so we can see it. Okay, we've got the outside of the strap, so the front of the strap here, it goes in one side of the slider, out the other. The front side of the webbing goes towards the bag, in from the front to the back. So this here is the front of the webbing. Curves around, goes up over the bar on the right side and down on the left side. And then I've clipped it. So the only thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and I'm going to stitch. Definitely going to do the 2 lines, so one here and then one closer to the slider. I have put holes in webbing before, but I'm not sure that's the best idea, so I'm just going to stitch it. I don't want to weaken the straps at all on this bag, so I am just going to stitch it. In the pattern, she does say secure them down with rivets. That is up to you. If you want to secure them down with rivets, go ahead. I'm just going to be sewing them. So I'm going to go and do that on the machine now. You don't need to watch me do that. And then when we come back, the bag is done. So I'm done stitching this on. The one thing I wanted to make sure, because I've done it before, is make sure that this part, the top, the webbing that's going through first or above where we just stitched, still moves before you do much of anything else. Because if you've stitched it, especially if you're going to rivet, even before you rivet, make sure that the top piece can slide through easily. Because if you have attached it to the wrong piece, when I first started making this bag, I had it attached to this piece, and I put a rivet in it and a hole in it. I had to take the strapping off and redo it. So you want to make sure that you're actually stitching it or riveting it to the correct piece. So anyways, there we go. This is the Triple Zip Crossbody Bag by Kine. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you could subscribe to my channel, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next tutorial.